Visibly demonstrating political will, the administration of U.S. President Donald Trump took measures to create an atmosphere necessary for launching a substantive and results-oriented dialogue on containing the Ukrainian crisis. It is fundamentally important that the American side at the highest level agreed that one of the root causes of the conflict was NATO's assertive expansion towards Russian borders. Meanwhile, the recently published U.S. National Security Strategy explicitly raised the issue of the inadvisability of endless expansion of the North Atlantic Bloc. This absolutely does not mean that we have no serious questions left for the American side, including in the Ukrainian context. However, it would be unfair not to recognize the above-mentioned as significant steps in the right direction. But, as we all understand, the main criterion of truth is practice, and we, with all due seriousness and attention, noting adjustments in Washington's approaches, hope that they will continue to be consolidated in concrete actions. There is serious concern about the manic obsession of EU countries with the chimera of an alleged impending attack from Russia. It is precisely under the pretext that Moscow is supposedly harboring aggressive plans and intends to invade NATO states in the coming years that large-scale remilitarization programs have been launched in European capitals. However wild it may sound, the pre-war psychosis is maliciously fueled by calls to prepare for a large-scale war similar to the one our grandfathers fought in. From the Russian perspective, it is important to remind that in that war, the attack was systematically prepared and ultimately carried out specifically on our country, not the other way around. We, of course, do not intend to attack EU or NATO countries. Russia does not pursue the conquest goals attributed to our country. As already stated by the President of Russia, we are even ready to legally fix this in the context of a potential settlement of the current crisis based on the principle of equal and indivisible security. However, in Europe, if by this established term one means membership in the EU and the European part of NATO, there are extremely few willing to build such an architecture not against Russia, but together with our country. An indivisible security space there, if recognized at all, is recognized only within the borders of the collective West. Frankly, this does not add optimism and clearly indicates that even in conditions of a more balanced U.S. policy demonstrated by Washington towards Russia, substantial risks of a Russia-NATO confrontation remain due to inadequate hostile actions by European countries. Based on a number of specific U.S. actions in the strategic sphere, it can be regrettably stated that the Pentagon has been directed to address the primary task of determining decisive military superiority over all adversaries. This is most clearly indicated by the ambitious U.S. project declared as a national priority for the development of a global missile defense system. The corresponding Golden Dome should represent an even more extensive, multi-layered, and multi-domain shield against all types of missiles from any adversaries. Thus, after many years of denial, it is now openly recognized that the U.S. missile defense is aimed not only against states deemed by Washington to belong to the group previously referred to as rogue states, but also against so-called strategic competitors like Russia and China. Here it is also necessary to note the demonstrative transition of the United Kingdom and France to a new level of coordination in the nuclear sphere. This includes joint nuclear planning and, consequently, the potential use of nuclear weapons by these two countries within a single design. Moreover, we must include the active discussion by European countries of the idea of forming some kind of superstructure to joint NATO nuclear missions in the form of an allegedly alternative, yet in fact additional to the American nuclear umbrella, pan-European nuclear account. In this regard, I cannot fail to mention the determination demonstrated by the Russian leadership in response to ambiguous statements about a potential expansion of U.S. nuclear testing activities. If the U.S. returns to full-scale explosive testing of nuclear weapons, we reserve the right to react symmetrically. At the same time, we continue to take steps to keep open the window of opportunity for political diplomatic measures to ensure predictability and restraint in the strategic sphere. The Kaliningrad region is not up for discussion. It is an integral part of the Russian Federation. Accordingly, it should be assumed fully and in all aspects that its security and the normal functioning of everything there and the lives of our citizens will be guaranteed by the full power of the Russian state. The provocative and intentionally provocative nature of our Western neighbors' actions, including around Belarusian borders, is beyond doubt. They are obsessed with the idea of provocation and testing resilience, testing patience, creating situations causing emotional outbursts in our countries. I think this is an element of the hybrid war that this group, with the indulgence but also with very active participation of some of their senior allies, especially in the western part of Europe and the bureaucracy, is absolutely maniacally subject to anti-Russian and probably also anti-Belarusian sentiments. This line will continue. We must not succumb to these provocations. We must ensure the reliable provision of what is, in general, an unconditional guaranteed standard of development and welfare of all our territories.